right, let's get into it. And I want you to understand, what we're about to go through isn't just a story. It's a chronicle, pieced together from actual documents, journals, letters, diaries, even newspaper clippings. These records tell the terrifying and supposedly true story of how a foreign nobleman arrived in London and what happened to the brave few who dared to stand against him. This is the assembled history of Count Dracula. This question, right here, written by one of the key people in this whole affair, it just perfectly sums up the horror they were living through. It was this absolute nightmare that completely blurred the lines between what was real and what was, well, impossible. It forced these very modern, very rational people to face a kind of darkness they thought only existed in old, scary stories. So our chronicle kicks off, not with some monster jumping out of the shadows, but with the very meticulous diary of a young English lawyer. His name is Jonathan Harker, and he's just been sent on a business trip to what was then the farthest, most remote edge of Europe. And you can literally see in his journal, with every entry, he's moving further and further away from his world and deeper into something else entirely. He even notes the feeling of, quote, leaving the West and entering the East. He'd read that this was a land where every known superstition in the world is gathered into the horseshoe of the Carpathians. And boy, was he about to find out how true that was. Now this is where it gets really strange. Harker, he's a man of logic, a man of business. But the local people he meets are just gripped by sheer terror. They're pushing crucifixes into his hands, whispering these frantic warnings he just doesn't get. This warning from an innkeeper's wife is maybe the most chilling. She is begging him not to travel on this one specific night, a night when all evil is supposed to run wild. And him, of course, he just brushes it off as local folklore. So at first, the Count seems like the perfect host. A little weird, sure, but perfectly polite. But that feeling of unease just keeps growing for Harker. And then he makes a truly horrifying discovery. He tries a door. It's locked. He tries another. Locked. Every door, every exit is barred. That whole polite welcome, it was a complete lie. He realizes and writes in his journal that he's a prisoner, trapped in this crumbling castle with a man who is something not quite human.
Okay, so let's shift gears. Because while Harker is trapped in that castle, a ghost ship called the Demeter crashes onto the coast of England. The whole crew, mysteriously dead. And with its arrival, a dark plague begins to settle over London.
So now the story jumps to the diary of a Dr. John Seward, and he is completely baffled by his newest patient, a young woman named Lucy Westenra. She's having terrible nightmares, she's sleepwalking, and she's losing a fatal amount of blood, but there's no wound. There's no explanation. It makes zero medical sense.
Desperate to save her, this little group starts to form around Lucy. You've got Dr. Seward, her fiancé Arthur, and his friend Quincy Morris. But when modern science just hits a wall, Seward calls in his old mentor, Professor Abraham Van Helsing. And Van Helsing, well, he's a man whose knowledge goes way beyond textbooks and into the darkest corners of folklore. And this slide just nails for central conflict of the entire story. On one side, you have Dr. Seward, trying to fight this thing with the tools of science, clinical notes, diagnoses, blood transfusions. On the other side, you have Van Helsing, who knows they aren't fighting a disease at all. He starts using garlic flowers and crucifixes, things that look like total madness to a doctor, because he knows they're up against a creature from ancient superstition. And here's the tragic part. Science fails. These men literally pour their own blood into her veins to save her, and she still dies. But her story is not over, not by a long shot. Van Helsing has to reveal the awful truth. She's been turned. She is now one of the undead, a vampire, preying on the neighborhood children. So now they're facing an enemy they can't even comprehend. And they realize their only real weapon is information. The only way to beat this thing is to understand it. And to do that, they have to put together every single clue they have. This is where Jonathan Harker's fiancée, Mina, becomes the absolute hero of this whole operation. She takes everyone's accounts, Jonathan's terrifying journal from the castle, Dr. Seward's confused diary about Lucy's illness, all the letters, and she types them all out, putting them in order. It's like assembling a giant, horrifying puzzle. And for the first time, they see the whole picture. They have a name for their enemy, Count Dracula. Once they know the truth, everything changes. As Van Helsing says here, this isn't about saving one friend anymore. It's not even about revenge. This has become a holy war. They have a sacred duty to rid the world of this evil. They basically become a crew of light, ready to fight the darkness. And so, the hunt is on. Now that they have the full story, they switch from playing defense to going on the attack. They know who they're fighting, they have a mission, and they decide to take the fight straight to the Count's doorstep. Or, in this case, his secret hideouts in London. 50. That's the key number they discover from all their documents. It turns out Dracula had 50 massive crates of his own Transylvanian dirt shipped to London. This isn't just dirt, it's his sanctuary. It's the unholy ground where he has to rest during the day. You could say it's his lifeline, his recharging stations.
So Van Helsing comes up with this brilliant step-by-step plan. First, they act like detectives and track down all the houses Dracula bought. Then, they break in, find those boxes of earth, and place a piece of a consecrated communion wafer in each one. This basically sterilizes the soil, making it poison to the vampire. He can't use it anymore. And guess what? It works. They start ticking the layers off their list, one by one, all across London. With every box they cleanse, Dracula gets weaker, more exposed. He's like a cornered animal with fewer and fewer places to hide. His grand plan to invade London is completely falling apart. With his plan in total ruin and all his safe houses gone, the Count has only one move left: run. He ditches London and starts the long journey back to the only place on Earth he can be truly safe: his castle. But he is not going quietly. Before he escapes, he confronts them and delivers this absolutely bone-chilling threat. He's basically saying, "You may have won this round, but I'm immortal. I have all the time in the world. I can wait, and I'll turn everyone you love against you." He makes it clear this isn't just their fight, it's a war for future generations. And what happens next is just this frantic, desperate chase across all of Europe. They use every tool they have. Mina now has this psychic link to the Count. It's horrible for her, but they use it like a supernatural GPS to track his ship. It all comes down to a mad dash by train and by horse to cut him off in the Burgo Pass literally moments before sunset, before he can reach the safety of his castle. This is it, the climax of the entire chronicle, the final showdown, where the fate of everyone involved, and maybe even the world, is about to be decided. But as they're closing in for the kill, Mina says this, and it completely reframes the entire mission. She tells them this isn't about hate or revenge, it's an act of mercy. They aren't just killing a monster, they are freeing a tormented soul that has been suffering for centuries. And in the very last rays of sunlight, they do it. They succeed. Jonathan Harker and Quincy Morris strike the final blows, and the Count just crumbles into dust. The curse is broken, the nightmare is finally over, and a final note written years later confirms that peace finally returned to their lives. So the chronicle is complete, the case is closed, and yet the story never really feels over, does it? It leaves us with one last nagging question. Here's a monster from a bygone era, defeated by things like faith and teamwork, but his image, his idea, is stronger than ever. So why? Why does this ancient creature of superstition still have such a powerful grip on the fears of our modern scientific world?